Good afternoon. It is currently Friday night. Well, technically it's actually Saturday. It's 12:42 a.m. Friday, the Dow closed down 406 points, or negative 0.77%. The S&P finished 76 basis points down lower, or negative 10.10%. I just messed it up. I don't care. Nasdaq finished down 1% and a half, the 100, and then obviously the Nasdaq finished down negative 1.40%. The Russell closing in at negative 0.42%. And I think the interesting thing about the Russell right here that we can notice is, right, you can kind of see why one of the questions you should be asking yourself is, why isn't it down as much? That's where rotation can be very, very sneaky, and a lot of people get off guard and they don't know what's happening in the market. Let me break it down for you. Calls QQQ at 8:50 a.m. If you look at the chart, we literally got 5 minutes after the bottom tick. We literally caught the bottom tick. Our contracts printed within 5 minutes, going up $1,000. We did call it a 14-point basis move on QQQ, which is a big deal. We weren't just done there. We called out 690 calls here. We got involved in 695 calls. Went up $3,700. We went. Here's verified member gains. Right. We had quite a few gains today here, going all the way back up. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning, helped this guy out, get some money here on some futures. Same here, futures, member gains right here, $406. $655 at that 690 call for QQQ. Void made $623, but he actually doubled up at the end of the day. I'll show you that towards the end. Joel was just printing all day long. Scalp. People make fun of scalpers, but right, scalping, you know, you can consider this scalping. Void again with some more gains here. We did have an account pass. Shout out to Chris, made $442. Joel just again scalping 128 now. Matthew made $1,309. That's awesome. Sean passed his options funding eval. Congratulations, Sean. Punk Beach is working on that. His second week. And look at his win rate with me, 85%. He's up $3,500, almost close to passing his account. Joel here scalping again. J Bob looks like he started a new Weibo account, up $300. Thank you for the shout out, bro. Thank you for taking my call and putting your trust in me. Joel here with some more bangers, $266 on that QQQ call, and the list goes on. It looks like we have a motherfucking payout feed. God damn, like we're a fucking prop firm right now. Again, Matthew increasing his gains here from 1,300. Alicia making $260 on that, making $200 here. Congratulations. We had a member make $10,000 this month here trading the Nasdaq. Void here upping his P&L to $1,221. And then at the very end we have congratulations, Joshua Lawrence passed another options funding eval following my trades. Let me show you the video of what happened and how I broke it down in real time. Let's get to it. Close under its 55 EMA. I consider the 55 EMA as institutional, so whenever we do break that, I pause. I'm not getting involved. It's time to kind of look at the chart and really evaluate what's going on. And instead of taking that pause, a lot of traders make the mistake of, I gotta get involved in the trade. What if I miss the gap up of 8 points? What if I miss the gap down of 8 points? It's like this fear of missing out, when in reality, I mean, not even just for the past few, like basically a couple months, for the past few years, right? The market's going nowhere. You're gonna go up and you're gonna go down. You can play both ways. But one of the big things that traders, and why I think they really lose money and why they lose their ass, is because they're not, willing to be patient. Before I talk about the chart and get technical, I really want to, hopefully, and I don't lose y'all, really want to help y'all understand, if you're having a tough time, passing accounts, you're having a tough time trading, one of the best things you can do is paper trade and just watch from the sidelines. A lot of people make fun of that, right? But I talk about reps before risk, right? Weightlifters lift, before competitions. Track runners, right? They have practice. So as a trader, why are you having practice outside of the market? Why aren't you having practice outside of the market, right? It's not just but you can't just come to a test here during the live market and then pass with flying colors, let alone every single day, right? No different from an athlete, track athlete, etc., right? You do have losses, and how do you handle those losses? A lot of people, when they have a loss, they close the laptop for the day. That's fine, but if you have better discipline, why not get involved, look at the chart, and figure out what went wrong and what you can do differently? Another reason why I think traders are, they're not doing well right now in the market is, I go off of the 3 pillars of trading, right? It's macro, fundamental, and technical. There's other YouTubers out there, other people that talk about that, and I do as well. You have macro, the what, the why, the fundamental, use case to me, and then you have the technical, right? This is a technical outlook, right? We have an institutional level here. We have some fibs and levels that got broken here, right? We have different chart patterns, uppercase H, morning star reversals, evening star reversals, 3 black crows, etc., right? That's technical. So there's 3 different components to the market, And it's about how do you combine all of them, right? If you're just looking at the chart here, right? I mean, in theory, that is really all you need, right? But at the same time, it's what do you do with that information, right? Right? Do you have a use case, right? So why are certain stocks going up, right? Fundamental, right? Macro, right? Gold, oil, and so forth, and etc. This information out here, right? The problem a lot of traders are kind of running into is kind of when you chop in a zone like this, it does throw off all your EMAs, and when you have extreme moves like up and down and all around, it really does throw off your EMAs. You're gonna say, well, why are you thinking about the 55 as institutional? The higher the time frames you go, the more, I'm not saying it's a perfect answer, this is just my opinion, the higher time frames you go, right, they're more keen, right? If I go down right to like a 1 minute time frame, again, people are trading for a 1 minute time frame, that's fine, but right, did you check your higher time frames, right? Look at the 1 minute time frame, right? This is just 1 minute. People forget your indicators, right, are firing off of like, right, 1 minute. You literally have all these changes here, right? Obviously, the higher time frames you go, and again, I'll give you examples later on in the video, you kind of have less signals, but look at all this. There's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of noise. So I think it's really key, and I tell a lot of people say, can you break it down for me better? I'm like, no, you need to step it up. This is a market with your money. There's nothing that I need to break down better, right? It's about, if you don't understand the language I'm speaking, you have to. All this information is free, right? Double top is free. Symmetrical triangles, positive divergence. All these videos, all this educational content, which I own as well, it's all free. So if you're ever struggling to kind of understand what I'm saying, that's completely fine, guys. But you really need to understand what's in front of you. And I hope I'm not losing some of you in this video. I like to ramble a lot, but I'm really passionate about helping people. And I think a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people, you might be somebody out there that lost $20,000, $30,000. I get it, it sucks. But you don't have to full port the next day. You don't have to get it back the next day. One of the reasons why I like going on my channel, right, is because you have members here, people make fun of, 58 bucks here, right? 70 bucks here, right? 266 bucks here, right? You have your scalps, right? You build your drawdown like a futures account on the chart, 50, 20, 30, 40. Then you can take the big boy play, right? But everybody wants the 266 before you get the 58. And it doesn't make sense to me. But I get it. You lost a lot of money. You're trying to film it. You're trying to rush in. You feel like you're going to miss out. But I can assure you guys, you're not going to miss anything out. I'll be your best advocate, right? I'm harsh. People don't like the way I speak. But it's your money. You have a lot of people with families out here trading charts that have no idea what they're doing. And I don't think that's okay. But I get it. I genuinely get it. But when you have kids, guys, you got to be grown up. You got to make grown up decisions. And sometimes some of those decisions are hard. I get it. Right? What happened Friday with the markets here on the, NASDAQ here is that, it's not what you think it is, right? Obviously at the 17th of the month, we have options expirations. So Friday wasn't buying, right? It wasn't, obviously it was selling, but it was an unwind, right? What does that mean? I'll break it down for you right now in plain English. Put walls, the broken 55, and why the market you traded in June basically is gone, okay? So, right, to understand what happened here, to understand like why we sold off here on Friday, you'd have to understand, right, the bare bones basics, right? What are options, right? Options are just bets with an expiration date, right? We have calls, right? A bet that the market goes up. If you're right, it pays. If you're wrong, it expires worthless. Millions of these were open at SPX, QQQ, and DRAM going to Friday, right? So think about it like this, right? You have five, normally, right, you have maybe 50,000 or, whatever. On Friday, we had over 100,000, for an example, expiring, okay? Big difference. On a zero DTE basis, right? On a zero DTE trading basis, right? Think about maybe, 50, right? So yeah, maybe price can do this, right? Whatever, chop, even maybe big moves, right? Think about 500,000, right? Not always, right? But price is more likely to do what, right? If all these options are literally gone, like they're done, they're gone, right? You're gonna get big extreme moves, okay? A put is a bet that the market goes down, okay? It's the same deal. If it pays right, if you go down your right, and millions of these were open too. Both sides of the casino were loaded, calls and puts, but like on crack on Friday. So, right, think of every option as a betting slip. Every slip on the table had the same printed expiration this past Friday, okay? 2, Friday was a day every bet came due. What does that mean? Option expiration, which is called OPEX, is the deadline. Every open call and put tied to that date either gets cashed in or closed out by the end of the day Friday. There's no extensions, right? So at the end of market close date on Friday, right, it's 3 o'clock my time. So at 3 o'clock p.m., right, every option, right? So again, normally on a weekly basis, right, maybe you have like kind of 50,000, right? But on particular, right, for this Friday, right, you had 500, right? So at the end of Friday, right, you had to cash out or risk those being what? Worthless for both sides. That's going to create extreme movements, right? And we already have a lot of fear in the market, right? That's one big takeaway to why people don't understand why the market was moving the way it was. Not only last week, but into this week, right? There's other factors, but this is a big factor as well that definitely got overlooked. Friday was the day, right? Every bet came due. So everyone with the position, winners and losers, bulls and bears, right? They had to do something on the same day. Winners cashed in their tickets, losers cut them loose. Funds that were hedged took the hedges off, right? All at once. That's why the volume looked insane on Friday. It was not a stampede into the market. It was everyone settling up at the same window, basically trying to fucking get out, right? It's closing time at the casino, right? In layman's terms, everyone lines up to cash their chips at once. The cashier's line is packed, but nobody in that line is placing a new bet. Okay? That's not great, right? Now we have the unwind, right? We have huge volume, huge buying, right? What people think they saw was, hey, look at the volume. That's capitulation. Big money's buying the dip. Go long! Wrong, okay? Volume bars go vertical, so right, it must be conviction. What actually happened was call holders closed, okay? Put holders closed. Both sides flatten into the print. Closing a bet creates volume too, actually, okay? It just doesn't create an opinion. Nobody was voting on direction. They were literally leaving. Like, see ya, bitch, okay? Layman's term, a packed parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning isn't a party starting. It's everyone getting to their cars to go home. It's the same crowd, but it has a different meaning. Okay, and for the markets, trading wheels, right? When millions of bets cluster at certain strike prices, while the big firms on the other side of those bets have to constantly hedge, buying when price falls towards the wall, selling when it rises away. That hedging acts like a magnet and price gets pinned between those walls. So all week, every dip got caught and every rally got sold. Not because anyone had a view, but because the machine was rebalancing. That's why the market felt stuck in a box, and it literally was all week long. And it's been stuck in a box for a good while. Okay? Look at the box. Look at the range here. Okay? We've been stuck here, even on the Qs, in a box here. Okay? And then you finally broke that wall. Right? You look at Google, I think a lot of people are forgetting like what CapEx is, right? Just think of CapEx as like spend, right? How much are you going to spend, right? And how much are you spending quarter over quarter? Right? So a lot of people, right, they get mad about Google and they're spending all this money and that's bearish, man. They're doing it to survive. People don't realize if Google doesn't spend their money, somebody else might take over. Right now, is that likely for Google? Right? No, but that's the principle. A lot of these companies, they just want to live, right? SanDisk, right? You know, Carvana, right? You have Tesla, right? You have all these stocks that they're just trying to survive. They're trying to figure out what do we have to do to get basically, and some people view it kind of like as a return on investment. They shouldn't be reviewing it like as a return on investment, in my opinion, right? A lot of people, right, like they're just trying to compete, right? Because if Tesla loses all their customers here to Carvana, right, then what's going to happen, right? Layoffs, stocks going to sell off, right? Bearish, maybe structural leadership change. I mean, right? The list goes on, right? But why would Tesla need a spin, right? For designs, manufacturing, this and that costs money. People want money, right? A lot of people want all this money here in the market, but they forget how they get it, right? No different from a company. If you want money as a person individually, right? Well, what do you think Tesla wants as a company, right? They want to make more money, right? But how do you make more money? Most of the time, you do have to spend it, right? Because you, as an employee, want money, right? You're going to say, well, Elon Musk, you have $1 billion, and I think you should give $1 billion to 1 billion people because that makes 1 billion cents, you know? Like, that's how people think, right? So my point is, right, how is Tesla and how are all these other companies supposed to do better, pay you more as an employee, right? When wages are going down, I get it, not going up, right? When they're not increasing prices, when they're not increasing their CapEx spend to develop things, right, to separate them from the competition. Right now, it's a war of who's going to come out on top, right? You have Apple, you have all these different stocks. One way you should be looking at the stocks in the market is you have ASTS, you have USO, that's the crude oil, you have Duolingo. Find all the sectors, right? So I like to go index, right? Okay, are we talking the Russell? We're talking Qs, we're talking SPY, right? Sector, We're talking technology, we're talking consumer staples. What are we talking about, right? And then I go stock, right? And a lot of people, a lot of people make this number one mistake in trading. I go index, sector, stock, right? So one of the biggest mistakes people go to is, right, well, Tesla's, right? So let's just say, Tesla, it can fall into multiple categories technically. But let's say for the sake of it, right? Let's say we categorize Tesla as, let's just say the index is cars. So you have a car index, right? Automobiles, whatever else, consumer discretionary, right? But we're going to say, right, Tesla is just a car stock, right? Replace the stock, we're going to make up a stock right here, car, right? So you have a car stock, right? Car's down, right? So car's down. Why is the car stock down, right? Find out your fundamental reason to why the car stock is down, right? Okay, so you have the fundamental, right? Because we have the three pillars, right? You have the car stock, right? So stick with me here. So you have macro, the what, the why, fundamental, kind of the use case, and then technical, right? The chart, what we're doing right now, like, is it oversold? Is it EMAs, right? VWAP, 55 EMA rejection, daily close, etc., 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 right? So the car stock is selling down, right? Do we have a fundamental case for that, right? So find out the fundamental, right? Like the what? Wow, I just fucked it up. Find out the macro, right? Like, what is the big picture? What is happening, right? Okay, what's the macro? I just fucked that up again. I'm high. Okay, find out the fundamental, right? For like, why is it going down? Like, or excuse me, fuck. Figure out the macro, right? So if we have our car stock here, okay, right? What's the fundamental use case? Okay, we have cars and like kind of that's it. Fundamental cars. It's discretionary, right? What's the macro? What's the what? The why? Like, what is happening around kind of automobiles that might make it like bullish and or bearish, right? Because think of the C as, right, we're going index, right? Okay, this is right. We're pretending like this is the Qs, this is the SPY, right? So the macro, the why. Okay. And then figure out the technicals. Are you oversold, etc., etc., right? So the mistake that a lot of people make is, right, index, right, you go to SPY, then you have your car stock here. You have car stock under here. So the sector would be, consumer discretionary, and then you kind of have your specific stock here. The number one mistake traders make here is that, right, if the index, right, you have SPY, then you have consumer discretionary kind of under it, like kind of like a subsector, and then you have the sector, it's automotive, but again, it's kind of consumer discretionary, and then you have your specific stock, Tesla. Tell me why a lot of traders think going from, right, keep in mind, right, let's say Tesla's down, right, Tesla finished 6.1% today, right? Someone's going to try to go over to Carvana, right, and maybe like, right, if they're going long on Tesla, right, but it didn't work out, they're going to try to go long on a different stock. Well, hey, maybe this chip stock is down, right? So I'm going to go to this chip stock and maybe it's going to go up. That's the number one reason why traders lose money. If AMD's going down, right, if NVIDIA's going down, right, if Broadcom's going down, right, then what are we doing? Right? Right? Like, what are we doing? Index, okay, the Qs. We have QQQ here, right? Then we have the sector, technology, okay? And then we have the stock. Here's all the stocks. Stock 1 here, stock 2 here, 3, 4, it goes down the line, right? If these stocks are all going down, why would you go into a sector that's going down, going long? Right? Well, AMD only went down 1% today. NVIDIA went down 2%, right? Broadcom maybe went down 7%. Maybe there's a stock that went down like maybe just a quarter of a percent, maybe 0.25%, but it's besides the point, right? When you're able to identify kind of really high probability setups, but you're able to kind of understand the macro, the what, why, fundamental, use case, right? Technical, we're oversold, we have a head and shoulders left, head, right? Your results are going to be a lot better here. And I lead that to go all the way back to Google. Up, so if you have a capex problem, like, why did Micron go up? Because they bought all these companies up. They literally so the reason why there's only a few memory companies is because when we had a downturn, all these companies basically got bought up. So, like, yeah, there is a monopoly, right? They bought out all these failing companies. So all these failing companies got bought out, right, for Micron. And so the problem is, like, right, that's super concentrated. But kind of the overall point is, they have to have increased capex spend, otherwise, and it's to survive. If they don't spend money, they won't survive. You actually have to spend money, like not only from an obvious standpoint, you got payroll, but like you have to expand. If you are a growth company, if you're advertising yourself as memory, and we're just growth, we're making these chips, hyper scaling, we're making all these factories, factory 1, factory 2, factory 3. These are fucking massive factories, dude. You're not just gonna build a fucking 7 year kind of factory project and then like just take. I mean, you could, but then right, leads me to the second part of the conversation. So the only two options are going to happen here, and I think it's going to be the latter. So either we're going to crash, and you're going to have Detroit everywhere. You're going to have Detroit. You're going to have Detroit like the big General Motors kind of fucking financial crash shit, right? You're going to have these big cities with all these big places, big buildings that are just unoccupied. That happens anyways, just generally speaking throughout life. You see all these big plazas, these big buildings that are just malls, right? Just towns that are just kind of abandoned, kind of ghost town type shit, right? But these are massive. They're everywhere. So you're going to have either a ghost towns and unfulfilled, half-built, or just inoperable data centers or underutilized, or you're going to have these multiply over time. And what we talked about the other day is, right, smart money, right? They're just waiting. They're waiting for retail to make all the mistakes, right? Yeah, Soxo was just at 300. Soxo was just at 300. Yeah, that's pretty fucking expensive. You know what's not expensive now? Soxo at 120. I can tell you, yeah, it's half off, right? The average retail trader will make the mistake of saying, well, it's half off, let's go long, right? I'm not saying go long, but I'm saying, right, how do you think smart money reacts, right? Smart money is slowly buying, slowly, right? And dumb money just pukes it out. I'm out, right? Or, right, and they say dumb money, but I don't even think that's really how it works. It's not enough that dumb money just pukes it out, right? They buy low, they buy high, and they sell low. So it's kind of like SpaceX. When I warned people about SpaceX, a lot of people didn't understand, right? I kept saying liquidity issue. They're going to steal your money, and that's exactly what happened. Everybody laughed, but it's the same IPO if it wasn't even for SpaceX, it's just the same IPO garbage. So that was your clue number one. But when you look at the SpaceX chart, what happened, right? Right, the price is 124, hundreds of billions of dollars. That's not true. It IPO'd, I think. Well, 1.7, because I said hundreds of billions. That doesn't make sense. Like hundreds of billions, like the IPO'd at 1.7 trillion, right? Right. So it was 150 per share. Okay. These guys got their shares at like 20, like some people like dollars, obviously, up to like let's say $100. Okay. When half of these people, right? So let's say you got it at 100, because a lot of these venture capitalist firms got it, right. These banks, remember I told you the banks, why do you think the banks just have the best dude, this all ties together, remember? Why do you think the banks have the best fucking financial quarter ever? I'm not saying it's because of SpaceX, but shit, it sure as hell helped, right? If they got their shares at $5 a share and you're at fucking 224, fuck yeah, bro. The person buying at 224, that's ludicrous, right? I get that SpaceX could have gone to 300. It wasn't gonna, right? But I get it could have gone to 300. But the point is that, like, right, you have all this debt. If me and you have debt, you owe me money. You actually owe me money. You're gonna pay me back, right? You're not Richard, right? Who has currencies working all the time, right? You're gonna, right? You have these other obligations you have to pay, right? Another reason why Micron sold off, people don't realize, is how do you think they're gonna pay their bonuses, right? They just had a strike, right? That you had a strike. I think that you had the strike. It was resolved somewhere around like May or something, maybe June. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been too long. But right, you had a strike. Well, the stock is selling down. 100% they're selling it. How do you think they're going to fund all this stuff? They have to take profits. People think that these companies don't take profits because the CEO bought 80 million shares. Yeah, he bought 80 more million shares after fucking only tripling it. So he has like $500 billion or whatever, right? And he just tripled his money. So that's chump change to him. And you know where he bought it at? He might buy it down here, like Nike CEO. The Nike CEO bought like, a couple years ago. It was a big headline. He bought $1 million worth of shares at 76. I'm like, yeah, it's $1 million worth of shares. And what's his salary? Like $5 million per year. It's a fucking tax write-off. He can't even get taxed till he sells it, literally. So a lot of people forget that on these charts. And that's what I just thought of. The other opposite of the spectrum is, right. So you have Doomsday, Armageddon, right? I mean, that's literally what it would be, and I agree with that. But then the other part of that, the only way to stop that is basically you continue to grow. So if you don't grow, you're gonna drop, and you're gonna say, well, anybody could say that. Well, I'm like, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are they're doing too much on the charts right now. A lot of people they're just it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. I'm like, guys, I really truly think you're overthinking. We don't have to think that much. If they continue to build out the data centers, you have materials, you have copper, you have gold, right? You have commodities, you have legitimate companies that are going to be going up here because their revenue is going to increase because of what they're doing over here on their build outs, right? So people act like, what is material? If you go to just AI, what companies are needed to build these things? Caterpillar, you need trucks, you need tractors, right? Cement, concrete work, right? There's big corporate companies that, contract and partner with these data centers. A good way for people to understand, like, maybe what companies get involved with, right? Not financial advice is, understanding, like, hey, this company is going to be using Caterpillar for the next 2 years, and they plan to build out, essentially, it's not enough to know, hey, it's 5 data centers. It's $500 billion worth of data centers. If somebody really wants to do their due diligence, look up to see how much, if they are they renting the machines, are they owning them, are they contracting with companies, what company is it? Is it corporate? Is it listed on the NASDAQ, right? And the list kind of goes on, right? And then what's their revenue, or kind of, what based on, maybe one data center, if you can give that information, which you should be able to, how much are they netting, like, per, and then that's where you kind of understand, like, what and why you might have losers and winners, right? They might partner with Tesla, right, for an example, right? We want your Tesla cars, but they might not partner with Carvana. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if they continue to build, which I think they are, I don't think you're going to have a ghost town. I think you're going to climb. And I wrote an article here basically saying that I think, I really think that, the recession kind of decides everything here. I mean, excuse me, this basically Google CapEx is going to decide a recession. You're literally going to have a beat and guidance upward saying, hey, we're going to rip up. We think that there's a great future still. We're going to build these centers out, or you're not. So I think it's a simple trade. It's about, like, your long game here, right? I'm not saying just grab leaps, but I'm saying, like, I mean, what's likely to happen? If me have nothing left to lose, has that ever happened before in American history where, like, actually people have nothing left to lose, right? 9/11, right? Didn't happen then, right? Great financial crisis didn't happen then, right? Even during the 30s depression or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Didn't happen then, right? Didn't happen during the farmer strike, right? Like, farmers, people are still kind of figuring out, which is a different conversation we have to have later on. Like, I feel like we're gonna have a different crisis up ahead. Like, we have nonstop crises. If it's not Iran, if it's not election fraud, if it's not COVID, it's like one thing that hasn't been priced in yet is the fucking food.
Yeah.
It's one thing that's creeping up slowly. I don't know if your dad has any insight on it, but it's like it's one thing that's been creeping.
I got more insight than he does on that shit.
Yeah. You're like, actually, I'm daddy, bro. Talk to me, baby. But hold on one second.
Lighters, bro.
Bro's trying to.
Click.
Bro can't afford a good lighter, but he's trying to give out. But he's trying to talk about the market of data centers and money. Okay. Yeah, sure, bro. Sure. Yeah. Go long, man. Of course, bro. But yeah, I really do see a future build out. I'm more leaning towards, like, the consumer is cracking. It just feels like we've been cracking for so long, and that's my point. If we actually full on crack, I mean, are they gonna? They have two options, right? If we actually crack, and I don't even know what cracking looks like, right? Because it's not visible. You get reports, you get numbers. Nobody really watches the news, right? You have a lot of people that are just working. What you have is essentially, in my opinion, you have cracking kind of all over the place. But I feel like they're gonna find a way. Whether it's stimulus, whether it's something this and that.
They have to, like we discussed. I mean, the market's designed to go up. So even if you do go down, you're only going to go so far, right?
Yeah.
That's just my line of thinking.
And that's why I tell a lot of people. Everyone's like, everyone's like, oh, that's why when all these people, even checking all these other people, I mean, the guys have been talking about recession for years. I'm like, yeah, we're already in one, obviously, like, no shit, Sherlock, but it's like at the same time, like, what's happened though? All you're saying is
Nothing.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're in a recession. Okay, and well, it's not right.
Yeah.
It's not right. Okay, and well, it's not fair. Oh yeah, and like the more the more you say and, the more they just sound like whiny. Like it sounds like somebody just well, 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 life's not fair, bro. What you're what you're describing isn't what you're describing is life itself. But now you kind of see,
capitalism.
but now you see through the
I mean,
now you see it from the market lens. Now you see that, oh shit, well, yeah, life isn't fair, but now you can understand why, because all the things you're describing about, well, it's not fair, no wage increases, not fair, market shouldn't be going up, not fair. Like everything you're describing here is kind of like a life concept here, and that's what I try to teach people, right? Right? We already know life isn't fair, but criminals still win, people still do this, still do that, right? So if you know, right, this is how life is, then how are you going to prepare for it, right? Oh, well, it's a recession, so I'm gonna go short. Okay, well, tell me how that works out for you, right? Right?
yeah.
And so now and I think the problem too I have with the recession kind of theory is like what happens to the politicians, what happens to other people. Okay, let's say nothing, right? Because like nothing happens, so let's just say nothing. Okay, so fine, we were gonna agree that like nothing's gonna happen to the any politicians in terms of just like jobs, income, this and that. But at the same time, yeah, because if people just basically are living on $8, like you're like you're gonna have a fucking civil war if people just start making $8 now, right? That's never gonna happen. But like if you start to cut out salaries, this and that, and try to go into this weird dystopian system, which feels like half the time it's headed for, and it's, maybe at this point, maybe we should be there. Maybe it's better actually. Maybe universal income is better. Maybe like that's how some countries are, like So you kind of saw with universal basic income how it worked, in 2020. You have rules. Don't go outside. Like it actually was kind of like a precursor. It was kind of a test for like everything that's to come. We'll give you money, shut up and be happy, but also here's our rules. Oh, the tweet you sent, take it back or we're not going to pay you out. Oh, you want the truckers and other people to stop, striking, or you want them to keep striking? We're going to freeze your bank accounts. Oh, okay, we won't freeze it because you stopped, right? Like, you can see how money basically just fucking straight up controls people. And people get it, but they don't because they don't look through it at that kind of lens, Yeah. And so a lot of people, and there's so much to it, but it's all to say, everyone loses, like everybody does. The politicians, everybody loses if this loses. That's kind of the way you see the market. If this fails and loses, yes, like they're gonna make so much money, but at the same time, I feel like people lose. Right? Obviously, half these fools, right? And it's not just politicians or wealthy people, just people generally speaking with money, right? I don't know about you, bro, but I kind of think of like the Book of Eli, like a fucking. Have you seen that movie with Denzel Washington, like, or Fallout?
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff like Netflix, I guess.
And it's like gonna be kind of a world where I feel like, yeah, you can't even enjoy and spend your money. Yeah, you're running a gold chain outside. Maybe not think about it, right? Like you think about these third world countries and how you're told you can't do this, you can't do that. Really, I think we kind of are in our own ways, right? It's gonna be like that. So I think everybody loses from so many different standpoints. You're gonna have to think twice about where you go and why. Instead of like today, right? Go out with my family, get some brunch at this certain spot. It's a decent area, right? But then you're gonna have a lot of decent areas turn into like not decent areas, right? And again, you're gonna have a country that's you're gonna start to have cities that look like Detroit. I don't know if Detroit's even recovered. The funny part, and it's not funny, but like I guess the appropriate word is the interesting part is when you kind of talk about Detroit. When you hear people talk about Detroit, you always hear them talk about kind of like grit, like man, what a tough city that represents America. And I don't know if it's because of what happened with like the motors, the GM, kind of when everything collapsed, right? But like, I don't know what you think about it, but like, people would argue is they still haven't recovered. It and it doesn't just it's not just with jobs, it's an entire community. You're talking about schools, you're talking about kids, you're talking about education. You're talking about people who like possibly had a great career headed above for them, right? Think about your parents, right? If your parents worked at GMC or I keep saying GE, any of those companies, right, that went belly up, right? You worked at any of those companies, any of those factories, right? You had a house, decent living. You're putting your kids through private school, this or that, or you were going to, right? You take that away, right? That's the difference of your kid getting x squared e equals mc squared 2 or not. So, I think we stand to lose so much more, right? And this is besides the market, well, but it ties back in. If that actually happens, I really think we're cooked. Um, and yeah, I really think we're cooked, and I don't know what else to kind of say about that. That's what's gonna happen. That's why I think longer term, right? Maybe the next year, right? Definitely go up. What we could see is like maybe right a sell off into October, right? Maybe we see kind of like a bear, kind of kind of like a bear market for a short term, right? If we actually truly sell off. But again, I think we are so far invested in this lie. It's kind of like when you lie to a girl, right? I got 8 inches, right? And you got like fucking 2. Well, you guys are basically planning to fuck her on the 5th date, right? It's the 4th date. We're kind of about that 4th date right now. They told us they got 8 inches, but they really got 2. They got to figure out how to get the eight inches. If it fails, right? If they fuck, right, and it or if they don't, rather, right? Because she's like, dude, I thought you were packing, but like you're just a little boy, bud. you know, it collapses, and so like again, like that's where I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to have a collapse. It does, but it really doesn't. I think because of how far they brought us up, it will do damage like people haven't even known. So that's where I kind of left with, right? Either, right, you're gonna say yes, it's up or down. I'm more biased to up overall long term than down, and I'm not a bear or a bull. You have to adapt with kind of what the market gives you. But right, this is just my take. My take is right, like I have a head and shoulders. I know all these chart patterns, right? I'm not just looking at technical. I'm thinking from macro and fundamental. AI has to save us. Where we can capture AI and actually turn to revenue, right, is we beat China. We beat all these other countries out. We have all the resources, right? Oil, right? Oil ties back into chips, ties back into energy, right? If we control energy, we control oil, right? We control the world currency, right? And we control then what? AI. We control it all. All we're missing is AI, frankly, right now. Right? You can argue about currency, I don't care, right? Someone can argue about oil. Bitch, we just fucking kidnapped the goddamn president. So we definitely control oil,
Yeah.
And all we're missing is AI. And China keeps like doing these Timu versions of OpenAI and somehow, making news. We never really know, like, we can't really trust with what China says, but the problem is we do have to kind of take their word for it and react to it, because I guess they released something that was efficient as Claude or whatever else. That's the same. That's the same thing they said about DeepSeek, and it turned out to be bullshit. But what if it's not bullshit, right? And what if what they're showing us actually is bullshit, but it's really like legit? If would I show you my fucking cards, right? No, right? So what we're doing is we're fronting it, right? China, I don't think front stuff, right? So we're fronting the terms of like, we're talking about we got 8 inches, but we got 2. China, but we're showing 8 inches, right? But we really have 2, right? We have a bulge, right? China is saying they got 15 inches, but they're not showing a bulge. They're showing 2 inches. That's why we're like, cap, bullshit, right? I'm like, yeah, do you think like, what, China's gonna just, hey guys, we're all doing, no, they're gonna be like, we have a platform that's legit. Here's some videos, here's some footage, here's some fucking weird whistleblowers talking about, yeah, I'm scared of this, and the hype and stuff, right? But like, yeah, they're showing 2. They've always shown 2. It's kind of like that thing where I talked about to you yesterday, right? I think that, right, a lot of people don't understand Iran and why the war's continuing on, right? Iran has been fighting us from the beginning of biblical, or fighting in some sort of capacity since the beginning of biblical times, right? You know, people just, and though it's a little thoughts like that, and right, China's been a powerhouse for so long. It's been this power struggle since, I mean, I don't know, like it's been Russia, China, Germany, right? And obviously we kind of are in the mix. Britain at one point, I don't know, but all this is a race to, and what's scary is the reason why I also think we have to go up here is if China beats us, I don't know what a world economy for us looks like if China wins. Like, if China wins whatever race this is, because this is all a race. People say it's not. Like, I tell people, why do you think you have to have military bases? Why do you think we have to have X, Y, and Z? If we don't conquer and take over, they will. Right? You could argue China owned Venezuela. They were trying to do a deal with them for oil. That's why the U.S. was like, hey, do a deal with us, and like basically, I think it was reported, right, or even you maybe mentioned it, or me or others did. We were trying to do a deal with Iran, or excuse me, with Venezuela, but the president said fuck you, basically. So we said we're just gonna take you, and he laughed at us, and he got took. So, you know, it's gonna be a war of resources and what can help. And we're trying to find more resources. We're trying to basically divide and conquer. If China wins, what does that do to us as an economy? Do we flip to now a country that now, like China, do we flip into a large kind of do we turn into like a country of like manufacturing now, just slave shops like we've been doing to them? I feel like if they were to have all the power, they'd probably make us fucking do some shit like that, right? People forget that, right? If they control the nukes, if they control the power, if they are the U.S., they're gonna punish us and everybody else. That's what people don't get. They punish their own fucking people, right? You can't even post certain things. You can say we can't. Well, we're not gonna lose our life and disappear for saying that, you know, President Trump shouldn't be day trading, right? You say that about the Chinese president or Russia. If I post it, they're gonna fucking go to my house. I'm going to disappear like everybody else that's disappeared. There's been athletes, famous people, gone. The last thing, criticism of the president, gone. Good luck, right? So if China wins, you have that. That's why some people are like, oh, I hope China and fuck the U.S. I'm like, I don't want to die. That's what I think of. Like, I don't want my kids to fucking suffer. I don't want my kids to be in slave camps.
Yeah.
Like, there's like these tinfoil hat theories out there talking about like how China like plans to have slave. There's this guy back in college in 2013 when I was in college, right? There's this dude. I got so high, or I think excuse me, well, one of us did, but I think we were both high. But he got so high, he started talking about these slave labor camps that like, you know, he thought were going to happen. Obviously, thank God they never happened. But like, what he mentioned about them, I always stuck with me. Every now and then throughout my life, I'll kind of just think about like that conversation. I never talked to him again. I was like, I just came here to smoke, bro, and like you just fucking stressed me out for no fucking reason. And so, you know, I think that I think that's what would happen if China took over. And I think that's what we're up against. We're up against a world powers right now, and we're trying to play chess while other people are playing checkers. The chess move was taking Maduro from Venezuela, so we did that. We got the oil. Now we're trying to control the Strait. We're trying to get involved in the Middle East to control now shipping exports. We control shipping exports and everything else, right? We control the oil. We control the currency. Right, etc. You know, and now we control basically where things flow, and we control the oil. China's gonna get on their fucking knees and start doing the Gok 3000. That's what's gonna happen, and that's what we want. That's what we basically need, because whether people think we're good or bad people, I don't know. I mean, I know that I know what good looks like, and China being a world power that dominates everything like we do, that it's not good. That doesn't look good to me.
Yeah.
And that all leads with, we have to continue up. AI has to work. Elon Musk said that in an interview. Elon Musk actually said, AI has to work or we're, literally, AI has to work or we're fucked. his, I mean, and the fuck part, I don't know. The guy curses, so maybe he did say that, right? Basically, right? That's what he said. If AI doesn't work, right? That we're cooked. We spent all this money and it doesn't work out. It's not about, yes, all the rich people have money. No one's ever gonna trust the stock market again, right? It's one thing to say, yeah, they've been doing it to us for decades. No, this was so criminal how they did it, even from 2020. 2020 was criminal, right? 2000 was criminal, right? Every basically kind of this entire run up's been criminal, right? But if they actually, right, if Micron were to go back down to 86, I don't think you're ever going to see. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I truly, because, right, what does that mean? If Micron, dude, goes back down to 86, all these 401ks cooked. Because a lot of 401ks, right, there's existing, but there's a lot of new people in 401ks that got into the technology sector. So one thing that I did for one of my 401ks a few years ago was I was telling my partner, I told my wife, I said, hey, your returns on this are like 20%. I said, and I looked at the holdings. There was some bullshit ETF here. It was like 3.1 stars. And I looked at some others that were kind of like not even, the stars weren't even higher. It's just technology. One was 20%, one was 120%. I said, dude, why don't you just grab this one, right?
Yeah.
And but that wasn't just the leading factor to grabbing technology, right? I was like, well, you have NVIDIA, you have, etc., right? But then, right, think about all the newer people who got involved with 401ks. All the new college students who got new jobs, even maybe just new people, right? 401ks are kind of preset. Like, I think you can pick them maybe, but I think they generally pick kind of the ETF holdings for you, and then you can kind of adjust them.
It all depends on how you go with it. But yeah, you can run your own 401k, or you can let them do it. Most of them run like Blue and shit like that, VTX or whatever. But they're also fucking reoccurring regardless of the market.
Yeah. Well, and
yeah,
so
I mean, like every month, people's fucking money going to their
exactly. And the problem I see here is, right, if you're tanking down, you're gonna have people stop their 401k contributions, and also if you go all the way down here to 86, like on a Micron, I don't know if you agree with this. I don't think, honestly, the stock market can even exist. I know it sounds crazy. Like, if XPX goes back down to like 4,000, Micron goes back down to 86, NVIDIA back down to 86, Amazon back down to like 100, because really that's what a recession will look like. Amazon back to 100.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, I'm trying to think of all these big stocks. JP Morgan Chase Bank, back down to like 100. If all these stocks drop 100 points collectively, or they all drop 20%, 30%, 40%, I mean, I think that point would probably be like 60%. I don't think you're ever going to have a stock market again. You are, but in the sense of like, I don't know about you, bro. I'm never going to fucking put a penny to invest in the market again. You're just going to have a bunch of day traders, right? And that can't push price up. What pushes price up? Buying the actual, right, physical stock itself. Options obviously contribute in different ways. So again, you're gonna have people argue, well, options push it like yes and no, right? It's always gonna be yes and no with somebody. But the point is that, right, if you crash just like that, I truly believe you're not gonna have people buy that dip, because the people that are gonna be buying the dip will be they would have lost
scared.
they would have lost everything too on the way down. Not even buying the dip, just from their 401k portfolio holdings. So some people that are said that are about to retire, maybe their portfolios are at 1 million. They can actually retire. If you drop and you have a recession, you go from 1 million to 500k or even less, right? You're gonna lose so much money from the market, right? You can't, right? Because that's gonna be headlines. It's not gonna be headlines of like, oh, don't do 401ks. What's gonna be headlines is, hey, the stock market's crashing, the stock market's volatile, the stock market's dangerous. I don't know about you, but if I'm a college student, or if I just got out of college, I have like a 100k job, or 60k, which is the average household income. Let's say 60k, you take home about $4,500 per month, depending on the state that you live in. I'm not going to contribute $500 a month. I need that money, because right as the market's going down, people think that when prices go that when the market crashes, prices go down. It's also yes and no. It's yes and no. So, that's my take. That's all to say. I don't think we can crash. I think that you'll see just riots, you'll see dangerous people, you'll see dangerous activity, and that's what that's what Iran's trying to do. So they're using the Strait of Hormuz to hurt our economy. That's all that's happening, and it's working. Would we be at 8,000 by now in SPX? You think if we didn't have a Strait of Hormuz issue? I could argue yeah. I could argue 100% yeah. I can't yeah. Why? But my question is why not? Right.
Yeah.
But the ironic part is like right, credit's drying up, and now they're also spending more money to, they're spending more money on capex, or excuse me, to raise money now. It's costing them more money. It's more expensive to raise capital. People don't get that too, right? So you really need rate cuts. This is a time where, right at this point, rate cuts have been so late for too long, but like. And my argument for that would be, I don't know how you feel about it. Maybe these companies should have spent their money better. I don't know about you, but I'm like, if like who's doing the financial forecast and planning for these companies? Were they just planning on rate cuts forever? So yeah, you have $500 billion, and you're paying basically $100 billion per year. Were you planning on basically doing that every year? When in reality, what the true price of what you should typically be paying is maybe $250. That's a $150 billion. That's a $150 billion difference. If that's what these companies have done, which if that's what it feels like, you're fucked, because now they have to have rate cuts. Their models of the companies are based on rate cuts, right? Now you have to have rate cuts, because you don't have rate cuts. What they're doing is what people laugh at people doing all the time, right? People call Dave Ramsey, right? Is that the guru guy? They call Dave Ramsey. I have $500,000 of debt. What should I do? And he's like, stop spending, right? So that's my point. Like they're spending all this money that they don't have, or that they think they're gonna get something back on. They have all these unfulfilled orders, right? Like Richard, I gave Richard money, right? I haven't gotten it back, right? I fulfilled an order for a customer, expecting, right, something might get given back to me, right? It was just a loan. He needed money, right? I helped him out. You helped him out too, right? But what's the point, right? We front run it a loan. But then, right, you know what Richard can do after he spends the loan, or after, right, he has a product, right? The data center's built, right? Someone owes somebody money, right? What if you don't get paid, right? So, right, the people who maybe built the data centers, right? Somebody, and that's the one thing I notice about companies. I think somewhere along the supply chain, somebody always gets fucked.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what we were talking about the other day with business. You can't run one without fucking somebody. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're purposely doing it, it's just how it happens.
Yeah. And so, I think that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just leaning, I'm neutral, I'm not a bull or a bear, but like long-term perspective, I can grab my puts to hedge for the downside for some type of biblical type of like downtrend. But if I'm a betting man, right, I'm gonna bet that the president knows, Democrats, Republicans know, if this fails, everything they've been working hard lying about, it's gonna fail. And at the end of the day, they know it's gonna affect their friends. These guys have friends, they have family, right? Not all of them are rich. They have relatives, they have nieces. A lot of these politicians and people, they have family members that definitely don't agree with what's going on, and they know that they're doing shit that's criminal. Sometimes even your own spouses know you're doing criminal type shit, right? But what's my point here, right? I think that it does have to continue up, because that's what has to happen. We have to win this race of AI. We have to win this global domination. If we don't, someone else is going to take the power board, and we're going to be submitting on our knees to them, and then we're going to have to be submissive. What does submissive look like? It doesn't look good. That's how you get into toxic domestic violence relationships, right? They're going to be punching us, beating us up, saying more factories, more this, more that, instead of us doing it the other way around, and they're going to fucking come for our throats and punish us for what we've done to them as well. Because we've punished a lot of people unjustifiably so. We don't even have to get into it, right? Wars. We've literally made up wars. We've made up fucking wars. You can't tell me if somebody else comes into power who's an ally of China, who we wrong. Like, my question is, who haven't we fucked over? Straight up.
Yeah.
Who haven't we fucking fucked over? You have, it's Venezuela. You have Mexico. You have even Canada. You have people in Europe. Even though we're helping people in Europe, I would argue we haven't fucked them over, right? And then it becomes a battle of like, if you can't beat them, join them. So fuck. if you're not going to be our ally, Europe, you're not going to be our ally, so-and-so, you're going to work for us and you're going to just be a slave. Or you can just be against the United States or, whoever, right? And that's all allies are. We're doing the same thing to Iran. Hey, Israel, we're good. And we don't like China and all these other countries. Let's just fuck around with them because that's what we're going to do because we don't fuck with them, right? You know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think we're going to head up. Maybe you see some consolidation for a while. That's what we had. We had consolidation from January. Well, I mean, you could argue and it wasn't a bear market. That's what I'm saying. You had consolidation. You might see consolidation from January. You saw consolidation from October all the way to basically we broke out in March. I mean, would you call that a bear market? I mean, that's consolidation. So, right, we're gonna have to be really careful and kind of watch. Are we gonna see an actual bear market where we downtrend? Because we had a downtrend, arguably. I mean, we were making another high. We didn't make a new high in the Nasdaq. We didn't make a high in the Nasdaq till I think March, was it right, or something?
Yeah.
I think we made one on SPX, right? But my point is, sure, maybe you break a new high, but we're gonna have to have leadership from the market, right? Right now, we had semis as leaders. Semis and hardware, they were leading the market. We need another leader. It can't just be software and it can't just be semis, right? That's why you need the Mag 7. The Mag 7 was leaders and then they weren't. Everyone said, fuck Facebook, fuck Netflix, fuck all these other companies, right? I mean, not all of them, right? Google did fine, I think. Apple obviously broke out, right? But my point is, right, that like, and a funny part about Apple, a lot of people were making fun of Apple. Well, why is Apple doing well? So I thought about it the other day because Lewis was asking me about that play. And I still, I don't know if it went up from when he mentioned it to me. Maybe, actually. No, I think he got in like at 330, so I mean, it got him up a couple bucks, whatever. But a lot of people were making fun of Apple. Well, why is Apple doing well? Fuck, it's so obvious. You know what they weren't doing that they were criticized for? So Apple was down for so long because people kept saying Tim Cook needs to be fired because they're not investing enough in AI. And everyone was literally calling for his resignation because he wasn't spending a lot of money on CapEx. Their business model doesn't require spend on CapEx. I mean, fuck, I guess Google can open up data centers. Like, what more CapEx do they need? Their product is a phone, tablets, earbuds, and accessories for that, right? That's why they didn't get into cars. They didn't get into cars because, like, man, you got Tesla. There was literally, they were talking even for a while, years ago, talking about getting all these smart cars. Well, they never did that. I'm glad they didn't, right? Because they stuck to their smartphones. So they're the winner in their space. What are the next different companies? T-Mobile, you have Verizon, you have all these other companies, but they're not Apple, right? You don't have a T-Mobile computer. You don't have a Apple. You don't have a T-Mobile. You don't have a Verizon computer, right? Right. So, the only thing they're missing, technically, I guess you could argue, is maybe they could turn like a Spectrum, maybe like kind of like telecoms, kind of like satellites, maybe stuff like that instead of data centers. I mean, you could argue, right, have your own Apple kind of, right, because you have Apple iPhones, right, you have LTE, kind of all these other things. Maybe they develop their own towers. Is that even lucrative? Maybe not. It doesn't even sound like it, right? But maybe they could roll into some plans, right? Hey, you're in the middle of Mexico, they start building some plants. Maybe I should consult for them. I mean, seriously, maybe start building some kind of, routers and things where, you build better kind of grids to where maybe where you don't have cell reception in the mountains. Well, hey, if you have an Apple iPhone, this is a good selling point for an Apple iPhone, right? We have these towers. We can reach places that T-Mobile can't reach. Bam, done, right? But they didn't even have to do any of that. They don't have to. They still don't. They didn't spend any money on CapEx, and that's why they have all this excess money where all these other companies are stretched. That's why people couldn't invest in OpenAI. Amazon couldn't invest because they didn't have the fucking money. Same with NVIDIA. Same with all the other companies. And OpenAI, we crashed on OpenAI a couple months ago, which people forgot about because they couldn't even meet their fucking obligations for payments and funding and what they made. They didn't even make what they were supposed to make.
OpenAI is basically just NVIDIA's.
It's their fucking sub partner. It's basically it's like a prop firm. You have two different prop firms. NVIDIA just has all these different prop firms doing the shit for them, and I'm like, it's the same shit, bro. You have a company doing the same thing. It's like JP Morgan Chase. I have JP Morgan, I have PayPal, I have Bank of America, I have Wells Fargo, right? Some spaces, right? I mean, there's more banks. I'm not going to list them all, right? But you have thousands of different kind of subsectors sub things, right? And what happens? Some of them like fell, and then right then you get J.P. Morgan Chase that buys out a branch, right? And it's not labeled as X, Y, and Z. It's just J.P. Morgan Chase, right? And then that's where you obviously start having a monopoly. But that's my point. You're gonna have winners and losers. What companies are doing the best in the space and why? That's why it's like index, sector, stock. You know, what index is kind of going up or down, why? What sector up and down, why? And then specifically, what what and why? Whenever the market's dropping and stocks go up, I'm always curious, like, what company is it, right? And I'm never surprised when I see Apple up. I'm like, they really should have never been down. You could argue that, based on their PE, based on this, based on that, maybe they're too expensive. I would argue at least they're not fucking spending all this money that all these other clowns are spending. They don't have to spend billions of dollars on data centers. They don't have to. I mean, they can. Maybe they are. Maybe they haven't told us. Maybe they have. I don't know. I don't care. But they don't have to do any of that. They're focused on making a phone. And it's actually one of the good points that my friend Tom brought up to me, right? Remember, right? He said, he laughed at me one time because he said, why doesn't Amazon do the postal service? Why doesn't Amazon do this? Why doesn't Amazon do that? Amazon literally has medical centers. I don't know if you knew that. They have medical centers. They have all these, obviously, warehouses for, like, just different kind of ancillary subsector things. They have kind of grocery-type outlet stores, right? Right? But what was the point kind of going even back to Apple, right? That costs them money. What's your return on, like, fucking opening up a medical center? Healthcare really isn't lucrative. It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I mean, yeah, you get the nail on the head. It is, but it isn't.
Yeah, there's a few things here, right? We have rotation out of AI hardware into consumer names, RSP, equal weight, it's at all-time highs. We do have broadening in the market, but we do have zero sectional leadership to drive index new highs. What does that mean, right? So we have no leaders, right? Obviously, we had, SOX, so we had eSOX, so we had the SOX leading, right? We had semis leading, right? We have no leaders. So all the money's coming out of here, right? But where's the money going in? No one's buying anything up, right? You look at the SOX Elite, right? Well, it's not software. You take a look at IGV, it's not software, right? So currently, right now, we have no leadership. Think about the market as a company right now. Who is the CEO, right? Well, is it NVIDIA, right? Is it Armstock? Is it Micron? Is it Dell? Who is a leader? Is it SanDisk? I know what leaders look like, and leaders. I mean, I know what leaders look like, and they don't look like this. Okay, I mean, fucking nasty rejection here, and you have people buying up here at all-time highs. Crazy. The same people who don't believe they can go all the way up are the same people who don't believe it can come all the way back down. Joke's on them, right? By the way, 55 line or 50 line right here. Ski, bro. Take a look at the chart. I'll go back to my slides here just so I can point it out to you. So we basically have the RSP. It's at all-time highs. It's broadening without a general leader, right? Equal weight strips out the mega cap gravity, and what's left is healthy but also leaderless. So right, we're at all-time highs, right? We're down weighting with NVIDIA, AMD, Micron, the memory complex, and this is actual genuine broadening. The average stock is doing fine, while the heavy cap-weighted NASDAQ bleeds. But broadening and no leadership with no sector is generating, well, that's what we need, right? So in order to get to new all-time highs, we need leadership. The Dow did push, but it's really narrow. And one thing that I really want to pick up on is everyone was making fun of Apple. A lot of people are wondering why Apple's going up here, right? Let's pull up Apple over here, right? So what was the criticism here, right? So if we're doing our due diligence, we know a little bit about the markets, hopefully, right? Why was Apple up? Or excuse me, what was the criticism for Apple all the way down here, right? Well, if you pull up like a Micron, right, and you pull up like an Apple, it's not a great comparison, but it's the point. So okay, I meant to pull up Apple. Oh my God, Jesus. You pull up an Apple, you pull up a Micron, right? The reason why Micron was going up was because of, shortage. So on the three stools, right, you have a macro case, you have no memory shortage, fundamental use case, you need it for data centers, technical, oversold, and, falling threes, morning stars, all that cool stuff, right? But one of the reasons why Apple was down here was because if you remember, right, the criticism for the president, right, Mr. Tim Cook, yo, Tim, what up, the reason for them being down here was because we were told that they were laggards and that they basically were kind of behind the entire AI trade, right? But then it turns out all that spending, or right, lack thereof, is one of the reasons why it's super bullish and why a lot of people are kind of looking at Apple. And right now in the market, you're gonna have winners and losers. So right now, right, you look at all these stocks here. You have a bunch up, you have a bunch down. Obviously, that's how it is every day, right? But if you want to look at the market right here, do you have any leaders? Like, what's been consistently going up? What's actually been holding weight? Really nothing. Everything's just right 2% up, but overall 5% down. Obviously, you have a lot of healthcare here. I think that's XLV here. You have XLV healthcare, the healthcare sector here. Yep. Right. So you do have healthcare kind of gapping up here. You have a Morningstar. You have a reversal of conditions here. You do have a head and shoulders. Here's your left. Here's your head. Here's your right. And one thing I want to point out here is like almost every chart looks the same, right? Left, head, right, left, head, right. Go to almost every stock. Obviously, SanDisk has one. Left, head. Here's your right over here. Probably go to SoundHound over here. I hate that stock, man. I'm not gonna left, head, right. So almost all these stocks have the same exact pattern. To me, this isn't a leader. By the way, you have an inverse head and shoulder setting up here. You might sweep these low down here. You may not. You don't have to create a perfect double bottom to be a double bottom, even though it's a definition. The market's been doing more of this. You kind of undercut right down here, retest, break out, and the rest is history. And ironically, right there, people are looking kind of over here. Hey, you need to have a double bottom right here. I'm like, no, you don't. It can just occur right here. This might fail. This just might not pan out here, but it might pan out right here in this time frame. That's why you have to be creative as a trader, right? You can literally grab your right shoulder over here, grab the liquidity, create your bull flag to rip up, right? It's those little small details that are going to make you successful as a trader, or look at the bigger picture. Like I even do some. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I talk like I don't, but I do. And I get fucking pissed and I hold myself to the fullest extent possible. I don't want to lose and I don't want to make mistakes. So right here, obviously, right? Most people might be like, oh, here's an inverse, right? I look at it a different way, right? There's a lot of different things going on here, right? You might have this, that might be valid here, but you also have this, right? What if this breaks down here? What if you go down a bit lower, right? What might you have, right? You eventually always create an inverse head and shoulders in the market, and a lot of people don't understand that. When you look at the charts here, yes, you have Morningstars, yes, you have this, yes, you have that, but 9 times out of 10, you're always creating an inverse head and shoulders, which comes off of what? A head and shoulders. You create your inverse head and shoulders. Within your inverse head and shoulders, you have your flags. That's a trap. Here's your traps up here. Trap, trap, and they get you, right? Trap, trap, and they get you, right? So that's technically speaking here. But without kind of going too far off topic, we don't have any leaders, right? Are we going to have any new index highs possibly soon? All-time highs, excuse me. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, guys. I'm running on prayers, hopes, and fumes, right? I'm trying to get this video done. I'm trying to spend time with my kids tomorrow. I feel like I haven't spent a lot of time with them lately. It's on me. Anyways, so next slide here, and one more thing. Software can't hold the market alone. Obviously, cybersecurity can't hold the market alone. Hardware must stabilize, and a second sector must rally. Is that going to be XLV? Is that going to be healthcare? We're going to have to find out. I can't tell you what is and what's not going to happen here. We have to watch it in real time and adjust and adapt to it. You know what I mean? So, is it going to be healthcare? Maybe, right? Are you going to retrace on healthcare, come back down here? We're going to have to, again, watch these candles here in real time, because you're having massive moves. You're having like 30 to 50 point swings every day, 400 points on the Dow. You're swinging crazy, and it's very rare that we do this, but you're being told and misled that, oh, it's normal, and things aren't fine, guys. They're not. Don't fall into the lie. You fell for the lie for 2020, right? And then what happened, right? They do it every time. 2020, 2018, 2023, right? It's like these feast or famine years. I did a report on Micron a long time ago talking about how their financials, their own VP literally said on an interview, you can fact check it, on an interview, that basically it's feast or it's famine. It's not really in between. So you have a feast, right? And then, or it's a famine. That's not a stock I really want to get involved in, but that's besides the point. My point is they keep getting you. So you have 2023 too. Oh, it's this, or it's 2022, right? Is it going to be 2026 now? Because it surely wasn't 2024, right? Kind of a tinfoil hat theory that I have here for the market is, I don't really think Trump is going to tank the market. I think that, and I have to be careful with what I say here. I think that I think that if people lose everything, they're gonna have nothing to lose. Okay. So I don't really see the market just. I mean, we're in a recession, but do I see the stock market just zero, right? Or like 4,000, 5,000, whatever SPX, maybe 6,000. More likely not. I think if that happens, more layoffs, more stress on the consumer, less jobs, less money, and um, you're gonna have people tripping. you know, a lot of people have nothing left to lose. That's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people have nothing left to lose. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. A lot of people have nothing left to lose. You take what's left of their 401ks, their retirements. I don't know what that looks like, but it doesn't look good. I can tell you that much. So this is part of the pillars, right? I can talk about charts. I'm giving you kind of my mindset of kind of where things are at as well. It's not just look at charts and let's watch a video about like X, Y, and Z. Anybody can talk about technicals. It's about how you see the chart and how you see the market that separates yourself. And one thing that I really try to do here is I really try to bring kind of my insights, right, on how I think Wall Street thinks, right? Where's the money flowing and where's the money going? You want to think like Wall Street. A lot of people don't. A lot of people think like day to day, right? Wall Street's like, right? That so they have dumb money, smart money, right? Dumb money is just like woo. Smart money is just like woo hoo. Slowly up here to the point where dumb money pukes it out, and smart money, right, is supposed to be smart, and they're just on the way up here, and then eventually, right, dumb money comes back up here, and so just like a chart, feast or famine, right? Feast usually ends in famine, right? You want a slow and steady race all the way up here, but it's besides the point. If you crush people, if they have nothing left to lose, I don't know how. I really don't know what that looks like, and I feel like it doesn't look good and it looks scary. That's what I'll say about that piece.